Hey everyone, my name is Michelle Zeman. For those who don't know me, I'm an autistic blogger of my own blog's website, The World of Autism. I actually have a returning guest. I'm very excited for her to be back on. Her name's Michelle also. And she has an important message to share with our community that I feel like would be so beneficial as a resource. So go right ahead, Michelle.
Hey everyone. So for those of you who do not remember me or don't know me, my name is Michelle Zeman. I am referred to as the Autistic Behavior Analyst on Instagram. I've been a BCBA for over 6 years, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 3 years old. So recently I have been getting into advocacy work. And the reason why I've been getting into advocacy work is because I recently was a graduate of the Partners in Policy Making course, and it was really life-changing for me. And I think it's very important to stand up for the community at large. And so I just came back from Tallahassee yesterday as part of the Partners in Policy Making course. And that was one of the things we did. And so I went and spoke with multiple legislators regarding several different bills, one being the elopement bill that is currently in the process of, I believe, either it's gotten filed or it's getting filed. And then I also want to talk a little bit about supported decision making and the very unfortunate free kill bill. So the first being the elopement bill. I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, schools need to get a better understanding of what to do in the event of an elopement. If you have a disabled child who runs out of a building, it is so important that we are doing something about it, because Florida is the second highest state in the country. We're right behind California for elopement related deaths. And that breaks my heart as, a behavior analyst that works on decreasing elopement with her clients. It's heartbreaking to hear that. We've had deaths just in my own city as a result, many deaths. And so the elopement bill, the whole point of it is to create a task force within the school, get in contact with law enforcement, which law enforcement training definitely still needs to occur. Found out that it's not even a requirement in Orange County, and I believe the entire state too. So definitely need to get that changed as well. I know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know. I found that very shocking too. I actually spoke with a lieutenant yesterday, and I found out that that's not the case. And so that's something that I'll be fighting for next. But anyways, so this code gray, that's what they're going to call it. Code gray is code for elopement. So basically the whole point is to have a task force basically become a search party for the child who engages in elopement. And it hits home for me because we've had I actually know of a client of mine who ran out of school. He went across the street to a gas station and nobody realized it. Nobody understood, nobody realized what had happened. And luckily this person is still with us. But at the same time, what would have happened if he would have gotten hit by a car or kidnapped? I'm thinking of situations, and this is a vulnerable person. They're not the most, not to say that they're not the most aware, but they do sort of fall into things very easily. And so it really breaks my heart to see something like that happen. But the whole point of that is just to get some sort of like force going, with, searching for a child, making sure that we are on top of it, being, holding ourselves accountable. That's really just very important. And we want to make sure that, the children that we work with are safe at school. So that is the elopement bill. I'll talk a little bit about supported decision making and kind of how the free kill bill kind of ties in. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. But before we go into that, I just want to say that like how much safety is like number one, especially that we've heard so much on the news like of other things that like we want to make sure that safety is number one, especially like how much of a vulnerable population that with our community that is that, you know, when there's people that are not watching and not being cautious of what's going on, like that's why there's so much of the deaths because of it. So having
Yeah.
that kind of change, I think that's going to be very impactful for people and to be able to be more careful and be, you know, and even just more educated in general about with our population. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's really something that I feel needs to happen really in general, but I
Yeah.
think specifically law enforcement and like school administration, definitely like there needs to be more teacher training, more administrative training. Come to find out in
Yeah.
Florida, um if you go for in-service points, teachers who
Mhm.
go for in-service points that are not teaching special education do not
Mhm.
have to have any in-service points for students with disability training. And if you are a gen ed teacher who's going for like college courses to recertify, you only need, I think, like one college course every
Oh,
6 years. Now,
wow.
you're in the field of ABA, Michelle. Like
Yeah.
that that's inadequate.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is.
yeah, like
It really is. I'm like, hey.
it's wild because
Yeah.
change every
No.
single day in our field, and
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know there's going to be new interventions and new
Of
evidence-based
course.
things that are happening in our field. Like,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that not only are people like myself and yourself um are the most updated with the research, but because teachers are dealing with disabled students on a daily basis, they
Mhm.
need access to that same update.
Mhm.
Like, you know, and the thing,
Absolutely.
yeah. And like, I will always say as a BCBA, when I come into a classroom, I am a guest in their classroom. But I also am of the belief that, when you are dealing with somebody with a disability, there are certain things that, we have learned works for them and things that don't work. And, we also have to find ways to make sure that, like the teacher's able to feasibly do so. And if not, that's where my job as a BCBA, I try to come up with something to ultimately help them, because my job is not to dictate. My job is to coordinate care and collaborate as much as possible. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So, so yeah, that's on elopement in the schools. It's
Yeah.
very tragic. It's very tragic.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm glad that there's gonna be in place moving forward about it. As you were saying that they're in the process, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Representative Escamani was actually the one who like filed it on her end, and then it was Senator Book who filed it on the Senate bill. So there's a House bill and a Senate bill. I'd have to look up the numbers so that way you have them.
Hmm.
But it is something that is basically being put into a being like talked about in sessions. My personal thing, I would say, like, there's going to be a lot of like nuances in there. Like, there has to be teacher training, there has to be administrative training, there has to be law enforcement training. Everyone needs to get an idea of what elopement can look like for each person, and how we can not just find a child but put preventative measures in place. We
Oh
talk about
yeah, and absolutely. Just even putting like those, yeah, preventative and also anything that's antecedent, as we call it too. Any antecedent interventions right there. That's how.
Yep, I was just about to say in our field is antecedent strategies, and yeah, like
Absolutely.
how can
That's
we
way to
yeah,
combat it.
yeah, like how can we prevent these elopements from happening?
Mhm.
I like to start at that level rather than go right into those reactive strategies, because reactive strategies, what's happening there, and one reason why I'm definitely big on law enforcement training is because law enforcement tends to go to most restrictive strategies. And, like I know somebody who was pulled over, and they had been pulled over for expired tags. Come to find out, this person's license was suspended. They didn't know it. They weren't notified of it.
Mm.
So the cop had him step out of the car, and he was arrested. And this person disclosed, I have autism. And, like, I need you to let the jail know so that way, like, like they're aware of that. And the cop didn't care. The cop still used force. And so they put him in the car. When they got him to the jail, they were cursing at this person. And then, like the person was saying, hey, like I'm about to have a behavioral episode. Like he's literally priming the cops at this point, saying,
Mm.
I am about to have an episode. I am about to have a meltdown. And come to find out, the cops still didn't give any sort of awareness or any sort of compassion. And he went into a behavioral episode. And this ended in the cops putting him in tiny handcuffs, slamming him against the wall, stripping him naked, video recording him.
Oh my God.
He was locked in a cell for 10 hours. And so that's where I say, we need to teach least restrictive strategies, compassionate strategies, strategies that don't involve, and tasers were pointed at him too. Like, why are we going to the most restrictive strategies when, the science of applied behavior analysis goes towards least restrictive?
Yeah, you start with least, and then if needed, you go from least to most. Absolutely.
Yeah. But,
Mhm.
the cops are saying, oh, well, we're viewing this person as a criminal because he drove without a valid license. But the thing is, he didn't know about it. And, like it could have been easily solved. It could have been like, okay, person, call somebody up to pick you up, or,
Mhm.
get an Uber back to your house or get an Uber to wherever you need to go. That's all it could have taken.
Yeah.
But instead, the cop went and did, and mind you, I respect cops. I understand following the law, but there's better strategies that need to be put in place that are not PTSD inducing. And unfortunately, this person has nightmares over
Oh,
this. So it breaks
and
my heart. It breaks my heart.
it breaks mine too. It really does. Because they're, like cops are great people. They really are. But
They are.
just that obviously when it comes to we want to be able to teach like alternative strategies when you're handling a person that's autistic. I think that
Yeah,
in the more training still needed.
absolutely. I think it honestly needs to be mandated,
Mm-hmm.
because when you think about it, like there's all types of people that cops deal with every single day.
Yep.
And everybody goes through their own thing, but at the same time, you know, there's got to be something that gives when it comes to like, how do we treat a person who has a neurological disorder, like a developmental disability, versus a physical disability? Like, are we just going to do the same strategies all the time? Or are we going to find ways to help de-escalate
Mhm.
the situation? Still, obviously, they need, if they commit a crime, then they commit a crime, and
Yeah,
obviously consequences.
obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I understand that for sure. But how can we make the experience of that I guess less intrusive for the person being arrested,
No,
you
you're
know?
absolutely right. Using
So
less intrusive strategies because not every autistic person's even gonna, react the same way to a situation.
exactly.
Oh.
Like, like how can one person, I mean, this person, like I said, had like a bunch of force on him. I can't even imagine what it would have been like for anybody else to go through something very similar,
Yeah, especially without consent too. Like you always, yeah.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you had another important part that you wanted to talk about besides the battle for the element.
Yes. So, supported decision making and the free kill bill. I'm going to kind of tie those both in.
Oh,
So, supported decision making is essentially the process where, the person who has a disability or, like needs a little bit more support, they're not under a guardianship, but rather they have a coach to help them make decisions. So we've been talking to a few representatives. We're super excited that we have the support of Representative Fred Hawkins. and he's going to be working with Representative Tant to collaborate together and to basically come up with a better bill than what is currently in place right now. So basically there was a bill filed and then it kind of got lost in the sauce. So so now they're trying to basically make it a little bit cleaner, because what's happening here is, unfortunately, there is arguments against supported decision making, because they're saying, oh, well, a guardianship will accomplish what supported decision making is, but that's not true. Supported decision making still gives the person autonomy to make every single decision. They just have the advice of a supported living coach. That's the difference. A guardianship, there's two types of guardianships. There's a complete and an incomplete guardianship. Complete guardianship, think Britney Spears, right?
Yeah.
So Britney Spears, she had all of her rights taken away, right to vote, right to marry, all of that. She was placed under a full guardianship by her father. Her father made every single decision for her. Now, an incomplete guardianship is you still have that guardian, but then that guardian only makes some decisions, but the person still has autonomy to make the other decisions. So, so my boyfriend actually was under a guardianship. He got like petitioned against, and he was in a guardianship for over 2 years. And he has the capacity to decide. I mean, he and I literally went to Tallahassee together and advocated on behalf of supported decision making.
Wow.
You know, and so the two of us, like, together, he was talking a lot about it. He was talking about his experience with it. And there was just a lot of there's a lot of guardianship abuse out there. And unfortunately, what needs to happen, do I still think guardianships need to exist? Yes, there are people out there who do not have the capacity to decide. But what's happening is guardianships are happening unnecessarily. I found out that in order for someone to be placed under a guardianship, you have to be evaluated by 3 doctors, and those 3 doctors have to rule whether you have the capacity to decide or not. And my argument with that is a doctor only observes you for so long. It's the same thing as like I observe a child only for so long. I don't see every aspect of the child's life in a 2-hour assessment or a 1-hour assessment. That's the same thing with a doctor. They're not going to necessarily know within an hour, 2 hours, So, so one thing that like I would love to do is either get like an appeal process going where, because basically once you get put under a guardianship, the person who has full rights gets to make decisions for them. They don't get to do anything, essentially. So how my boyfriend managed to get out of his guardianship, he actually snuck in a cell phone at his group home. Yeah. And then he made a call to Disability Rights Florida and was like, I'm under a guardianship and I need to get out of it. And Disability Rights Florida got him out in 2016. His story is actually everywhere. I can actually like send you some links, Michelle, so that way you can see what they are.
I will absolutely, if you want me to attach it. Yeah, obviously with question, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely attach those links for you. If you also too, like, I know we're recording right now. If you want to talk to him and interview with him, I mean, I'm sure he'll gladly share his story with you.
Yeah.
But
that would be awesome. That's just another whole topic of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the supported decision making, you still have autonomy to make the decision. You are the decision maker. You just have somebody helping you along the way. You get some advice from your coach.
So that's a big difference. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big difference.
It is. And the thing is, there are people, like I said, who just don't understand that autistic people and disabled people in general, not just autistic people, but disabled people, everyone should have the right to make a decision. Everybody should. Because to say that we can't, I mean, that's not fair. It's not fair to our community.
It really is not. And so like having rather than like instead like just always having that coach that's by you, you know, sometimes like even just for clarification of things. Like we, you know, a lot of times for us, like things are so not clear of how it's communicated. So like sometimes even just to like clarify with a coach, that would help make for us to be able to make our own decisions. And I think that's what's happening a lot of times and why there's so much unnecessary things with guardianship is because of the fact that, you know, there's people that are making these decisions, but yet it's not clarified. And I think that's what the bottom line with a lot of things is that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really just a big thing. Like we want to give autonomy and we want to help, we want to get those decisions, we want to keep autonomy in mind. Um, so that's kind of what it is with supported decision making, just we really just want our community to be able to make decisions. If they don't have the capacity to decide, as not just evident by doctors, but evident by the people around them. If there's like a very profound disability that somebody has, they can't, they don't have the ability to, that's one thing.
That's
But
yeah, obviously. Of course,
yeah,
we have to
but
keep that in mind. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not asking to eliminate all guardianships. Now, I think guardianship abuse needs to be addressed absolutely, but
Mm.
I'm not saying eliminate all guardianships, but
Oh yeah.
let's give autonomy to people. Even
Mm.
if it's, I'm going to collaborate and coordinate with somebody to help me with this, help me come up with a plan, help me come up with how I should go about this, you know? So,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you about that. It's just, you know, just to be able to, like, even I get the whole idea with your message in general, just about with from advocacy to even like having plans in place, such as like a safety team for elopement too, where even just for even with having a coach when it comes to making decisions, not obviously not eliminating guardianship because you know that it is an important access for people. God forbid, you know, when you have someone who does have a really profound disability, obviously you need that kind of resource. But to
yeah,
have it where there's a lot of people that we want to be able to respect autonomy, we want to be able to give people that much access as much as possible for them to be able to make their own decisions while still having that kind of support who they're only going to clarify things and give advice to you, but that won't, you know, entirely shape your decision. You'll still get to make your own decision. And I'm glad that you shared these things because it just, you know, that's why it's so important for people to advocate because it's your own rights that you get to stand up for, and we all have our own rights. That's what's
exactly.
beautiful about our country too, that you know, just having our own rights to be able to stand up for.
Absolutely. And like I can't even imagine what it would be like to get your rights taken away, like the right to marry, which I'm going to go into free kill next because this is where this gets
Yeah.
related. So, the free kill law currently states that if you are above the age of 25 and you are unmarried, doctors do not have to resuscitate you. If doctors do not resuscitate you, they are protected. And if you go after the doctor under any circumstances, um, they're protected and they have a statute of limitations. So if you want to go after them, a couple years later, the statute of limitations expires. Now, Senate Bill 690 is a bill that I believe I don't remember which senator off the top of my head. I will get that information for you, but Senate Bill 690 is to help overturn that law. Now, let me explain why this bill or why this free kill law is so scary for not just people over the age of 25, but especially disabled people. Because, you and I are both autistic, right?
Mhm.
So, and you're above the age of 25, am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I am.
imagine if you were not married. I'm not 100%. Are you married or no? Okay, so I'm not married. I'm
No.
above the age of 25. My boyfriend is above the age of 25. He's not married. I know a bunch of people that are disabled and above that age, and doctors can basically choose, oh, well, I don't have to resuscitate you if I don't want to. They're protected. And which turns into
Mhm.
wrongful death, which to me, unfortunately, like it makes me think, okay, so in that case, because murder is against the law, well,
Yeah.
technically, isn't that what's happening here? You're not allowing resuscitation no matter what, like that
Wow.
just doesn't sit well. That doesn't sit well at
That
all.
doesn't.
Yeah. So
Doesn't.
yeah, so we're really, really trying to get Senate Bill 690 like in effect, because Senate Bill 690 is the overturn of that law. Because everybody has a right to live, and it's hurting
Yeah.
the disability, it's hurting disabled adults, probably, I think the most, if not a significant amount, because there's a huge percentage of disabled people who are not married. There's a huge percentage of people
Hmm.
who aren't going to get married someday. But if, they, God forbid, they get in a car accident, like the doctors are allowed to be protected and they can still have their license. Like that's wild. That is
That is wild to me. I'm it's just shocking because, especially how much, again, we go back to how vulnerable of a population and stuff. So it's just that's crazy.
yeah, and I don't know this person, but I know of a person who went to one hospital. They were above the age of 25, they were disabled and unmarried. And
Mhm.
um I believe it was called, I don't remember the hospital name. But they were rejected from that hospital and was told, okay, sorry, we can't help you. By the time they got to the next hospital, the
Mhm.
person was pronounced deceased.
Oh boy.
And this person was above the age of 25. The doctors didn't have to do anything. And so
Wow.
you see where it's like, this is so harmful to our community. And it's like, we have to do better. We have to do better.
We definitely do. And just like it takes everybody to be able to make a difference. It really does. Like just advocating for these changes to happen, to be able to help our population out so much. So I really want to thank you for that and for sharing with everything because this is what people need to hear in order for things to change. So thank
Yeah,
you, Michelle.
of course. And one voice makes a huge difference, believe it or not. Even if, people say like, oh, well, I'm just one vote or I'm just one person adds up to many more people if you continue to exercise your right to free speech.
Oh, absolutely. I can agree more with you about that. Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
thank you again so much for sharing your message. I really feel like it's going to benefit so many people. And for everybody, make sure you follow Michelle on Instagram. Can you tell your user handle again?
Yes, the my Instagram handle is the autistic behavior analyst.
Awesome. Make sure you guys follow her and make sure that you guys follow me as Exceptional Shell. My username handle is at self advocate MV. I'm on all social media platforms, so follow me there and my blog website, The World of Autism.